Welcome to Ask the Lawyer radio podcast with attorney Brian Figueroa of the law firm Figueroa and Associates. This podcast features a recording of our most recent radio show aired on WVIP 93.5 FM radio weekly in New York City. We hope you enjoy the show, which features news, views, and interviews on matters such as immigration, personal injury, bankruptcy, divorce, family law, estate planning, wills and probate, deed transfers, civil rights, criminal defense, workers' compensation, and taxes, both individual and business. You can contact us at 855-768-8845 or visit us at www.askthelawyer.us. You have questions? We've got the answers.
A very warm welcome to everyone. We are joined by a very special guest, Mr. David Satnarine, who is the Special Counsel in the Immigration Department of the District Attorney's Office in Kings County. Welcome, sir. Good to have you here with us.
Well, thank you for having me, Pearl. On behalf of District Attorney Eric Gonzalez, I bring you the warmest regards. And, it's always a pleasure to sit here and chat with you and especially engage with you and your audience.
Thank you so much. Always a pleasure to have you. So tell us what's been happening the past year, 2022, and what we can look forward to at least in the third quarter with your department.
So, as you know, Pearl, the Brooklyn District Attorney Eric Gonzalez is a strong proponent of immigrant rights and justice in Brooklyn. DA Eric Gonzalez is the first Latino district attorney throughout the New York State. He understands these immigrant issues and immigrant justice issues at a very intimate level. And our office has been a very, very strong proponent of finding ways to make the criminal justice system fairer to immigrants and also to do what we can to meet the needs of Brooklyn immigrants as they arise in the community. So for some examples, I'll give you back in April of 2022, our office saw an arising need in Brooklyn when thousands and thousands of Ukrainian refugees came to the shores of Brighton Beach, fleeing the war in the Russian invasion. And what our office did is that we worked with nonprofit providers and the local nonprofit organization in Brighton Beach to provide them with legal consultations for temporary protected status. We trained hundreds of prosecutors on how to do this work to provide that service. It was a free service. In one day, we served almost 700 people, 300 people, I'm sorry, at that event. We did more events like that in the ensuing months. And then another example is when we saw another rising need in Brooklyn when thousands of people were being bused to New York City from Texas and Arizona. We held an event in October to provide the asylum seekers that were in Brooklyn shelters with pro bono attorneys to do legal consultations on their asylum claims or potential asylum claims to advise them of what are their rights, and not just legal help, but also social services and wraparound help. In that event, we served over 700 people. And those are the types of things that we're committed to in Brooklyn going forward in 2023. As always, we take law enforcement and public safety as our utmost priorities, but serving the needs of the community and meeting those law enforcement and public safety goals go much further than just prosecuting cases.
Okay, great. So we know that immigration fraud is always an issue or concern for immigrants. What is your department doing to protect immigrants in that regard?
So District Attorney Eric Gonzalez started one of the nation's first immigration affairs units that houses specially trained prosecutors to investigate predators who prey on immigrants in Brooklyn, and whether that be a business or a person. These prosecutors outreach with the community often. In 2022, we did dozens of community events and Know Your Rights forums where our prosecutors spoke on those panels and met with the community to hear the things and the trends that are going on in the community in terms of people who might prey on individuals. We've prosecuted a number of cases in Brooklyn for immigration fraud. There was a statute that New York State passed in 2015 or 16. It was the one-of-a-kind statute called immigration services fraud. And this was designed to protect the public against people who held themselves out to be lawyers, who were not actually lawyers, and defrauding people for immigration services, or pretended to be an immigration officer and made a promise to provide something to someone when they actually had no authority to do so. In 2016, our office was one of the first offices to prosecute someone under that statute. It was an individual who falsely represented himself to be a lawyer and was taking thousands of dollars from individuals in Brooklyn, saying that he was providing them legal representation when he had no authority to do so. And he wasn't actually providing any legal help to these individuals. We followed up with that in 2018. We had another successful prosecution of an individual that targeted the Eastern European community in Brooklyn. And then again in 2019 and going to 2020, we had an individual that's targeting the Caribbean community in Brooklyn. Mm-hmm. We have many other examples of making sure that we hold those what we call unlawful practitioners or unlicensed lawyers that are preying on immigrants in Brooklyn.
And even attorneys sometimes.
And I can't say that there aren't attorneys who engage in dubious practices. It's like any profession. Mm-hmm. You always have to be aware of who you're dealing with. I do think that it is difficult to prosecute lawyers for some of this immigration fraud work. The level of the line between malpractice and criminality is a tough line to establish. But as prosecutors, we are on many different task forces, and our Immigrant Affairs Unit is on various task forces that include the grievance committee for that disciplines lawyers, and we look at cases together. They refer cases to us. We send cases to them. We all talk about trends, and we look at ways that we can continually protect the Brooklyn community as a whole.
Mm-hmm. I was just mentioning that sometimes even licensed attorneys, they do, defraud immigrants. Let's talk about some red flags that immigrants should pay attention to avoid being victims of immigration fraud. And also, I would like you to touch on the Biden administration new program, Sponsor an Immigrant, which is another scam that could, arise.
So one of the things that we always say is a major red flag is an immigration practitioner who only wants to do a transaction in all cash. All cash transactions are a major red flag for immigration service. Any licensed attorney should be giving receipts for their immigration service, and they should also be entering what we call retainer agreements. The New York State Bar Association has very, very detailed rules about how these retainer agreements and receipts should be structured. Someone who is not an attorney, or is a major red flag that they're not an attorney or not practicing in a lawful way, is when they're seeking to do all cash transactions and they won't give a receipt. We always encourage people to make sure you get a receipt for the work that you do. Make sure you get something in writing. Some of our most successful immigration fraud prosecutions hinged on something as simple as someone having a unique stamp that they put on a receipt. Our victims were self-aware enough to know to get some type of document or receipt from this person who was practicing unlawfully, and when we investigated the case, we were able to connect those receipts to items in his home that could only stamp that receipt. And this is how we knew that this was the person doing that type of work.
Wow. So if one believes they're a victim of fraud, how can they contact your office? What steps should they take, to get assistance?
So I would say if you believe that you're a victim of fraud, always be ready to call our Immigrant Affairs hotline. The number is 718-250-3333. We'll be able to take that report right away. If we don't pick up, please leave a message. We will call you back, and we will get back in touch with you to talk about what you're experiencing. Another important thing to do is if you feel that you've been a victim of a licensed attorney, the New York State Office of Court Administration has an attorney discipline panel. And you can go online and look that up as the attorney discipline panel for New York State and file a complaint with them.
And of course, persons shouldn't be concerned about their immigration status. They should feel free to call the district attorney's office. You do not collaborate with ICE to reporting persons, because that's, an area of concern.
And one of the things that I think DA Eric Gonzalez has been a loud proponent of is that we make sure that we protect everyone's immigration status, and they can come to our office and report any crime, not just immigration, but any crime whatsoever, without fear that we will share their immigration status with ICE. The laws of New York and the laws that we enforce in Brooklyn protect everyone regardless of immigration status, and our office has a policy of not sharing information with immigration enforcement authorities for civil immigration purposes.
Okay, and I believe your office was the first to sue ICE, right?
Right, and our office was the first district attorney's office in the country to bring a lawsuit against ICE to protect the immigrants of Brooklyn. That lawsuit centered around a policy that the Trump administration really ramped up in 2017 and 18 when he first took office, of arresting witnesses and people in criminal courts houses in New York City. We saw a measurable chilling effect in the ability of witnesses wanting to cooperate with us, with our office. We actually saw cases that we felt should have been prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. We either had to dismiss or lower the charges in that case because the victim became scared to testify in court because of ICE's presence there. What we did is we went to court with the Attorney General's office and sued ICE in federal court and won an injunction that still is in place today that prevents ICE from arresting individuals that are coming to criminal court to testify or to appear either as a witness or a defendant.
Okay, and just quickly, mention the scams surrounding the sponsor program, what immigrants should look out for.
So the Biden administration just late last year and early this year is rolling out a program called the U.S. Welcome Corps. It's primarily a program that a form that you fill out online where you can sponsor particular individuals for refugee status and give them an ability to be paroled into the United States. The program is coming in a couple of phases. Right now, phase one is for people that are already in the pipeline for refugee applications overseas. But as phase two opens up in the coming months, this is where individuals can band together and sponsor someone by posting a $5,000 sponsorship fee to bring someone into the United States that they believe has a legitimate refugee or asylum claim. We believe that this will be the source of fraud for many people who may unwittingly be at the service of individuals who falsely sponsor them and then force them into all kinds of either labor fraud or trafficking fraud, and we're on the lookout for those issues. There are also people who are going to be coerced into agreeing to paying back that money, which is not the law does not require that money to be paid back, and that's not something that someone should be having to pay back. So we want to make sure that people are aware of those red flags. If you're seeing someone saying we're willing to sponsor you, but only on the condition that you do X, Y, and Z, that is not required under the program. They may see, their family members overseas become victims of that. So we're on a heightened sense of awareness, a stage of awareness of those claims and the potential for fraud in that program.
And there may also be a potential for someone to say, I'm looking to sponsor immigrants, make a donation to me, but the donation is really to me and not for the immigrants.
Right, and then a lot of people are just going to take the money and not actually use it to go into to sponsor anyone.
Mm-hmm. All right. So, Mr. Satnarine, we want to thank you so much for being here and sharing great information. And once again, give out that hotline for our listeners.
And once again, our Immigrant Affairs hotline is 718-250-3333. And you should be sure that you can call that number and share information with us without fear of us sharing any information with immigration authorities, including ICE.
All right. Thank you so much. And we look forward to having you back again.
Thank you, Pearl.
Our pleasure.
Do you have a legal issue, question, or concern? Turn to Ask the Lawyer. You have questions? We've got answers. For a consultation or to refer a client, visit www.askthelawyer.us. Again, www.askthelawyer.us. You can also register for our paralegal program, get legal news, business consults, or other information on educational issues. Yes, ask the lawyer. You have questions? We've got answers. For a consultation or to refer a client, visit www.askthelawyer.us. Again, www.askthelawyer.us.